Hello, and welcome to another HR headline. My name is Laura Lepke. I am the Talent Acquisition Division Leader for Human Resources for the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County. Today in our HR headline, we're going to be going over interview best practices. So recently with the city and county, we have opened up the hiring process and made it more flexible to consider as many candidates as you truly would wish to for each open position. So whether that's 5, 10, 15, 20 candidates for each role, or even everyone who does meet those minimum qualifications on the classification page, you can consider as many candidates as you would like for each position, as long as they are going through the same equitable interview process. So with opening things up, that does leave a lot of flexibility, but also not very much structure. So we do want to provide you with some resources on how to structure your interview process, give some ideas and tools to help you ensure a successful hiring process so that when you find that right person, you get them in, can fully evaluate them, and know that you've made the right hire. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll jump right into it. All right. So we have the Korn Ferry interview questions. This is a behavioral-based interview architect and something that anyone on talent acquisition would be happy to sit down with you as a department and discuss more detail on. But essentially, you would pick the competencies that are needed for a certain role, leadership qualities, personality traits, just predictors of how that person would perform in the role, and then choose interview questions based off of those competencies. So again, that's something we can sit down with you and discuss further if you're interested in more of a behavioral-based interview approach. We also have other interview question banks that are available if you want just a large plethora of ideas on what you could be asking the employee. We have them categorized by different positions, levels of work, to give you some ideas on what to be asking. Phone screening. So with the flexibility to receive more candidates, there are some instances where you would have a very high volume of applicants to consider for a role. And in those cases, it would make sense to implement a short phone screening as that first step in the interview process. These are typically 4, maybe 5 questions max. They just had to be done by one individual. Don't need a full panel for this by any means. But do want to record what the applicants were asked and how they answered to really screen for simple things like shift availability, remote or in-office availability, confirm the job description, confirm compensation level, things like that. So definitely a shorter step in the process to really hone in on that top group that you want to bring in for the more formal side of the interview process. Phone and virtual interviews are asking those more in-depth questions about past experience, professional experience, and what that person would bring to the organization, further explaining the role. Definitely more of a formal setting, and we do want to recommend at least 2 people for these interview panels for the phone and virtual interviews. In-person interviews are the most traditionally known type of interview where you bring them in to the office to tour around, sit down with the leadership team, a full panel, generally minimum of 3 individuals on these panels to fully evaluate this individual and their fit for the position. So it's my screen here. All right, speaking of interview panels, so we want to include a wide range of human differences and diversify who we have on those panels. So individuals from multiple levels in the organization can even bring people in outside of the organization, subject matter experts or people who are professionals in the space that you are interviewing for to really advise on that person's ability to be successful in the role. One thing we do in human resources is for all interviews, we do bring in someone from another department. So we do just want a wide range of perspectives so that we're not just hiring people in that are exactly the same as what we've had previously or who we have now. Want to diversify our candidates this way and the employees that make up our department. Screen here. So diverse interview panels are a great way to combat both implicit bias and disparate impact. These are those unconscious biases that we all have and do need to kind of confront head on. Something that will affect our interview processes. And the reality is that we do have a certain demographic in our applications, and that's different than the demographic that we have for our employees. So we do want to make sure that we're combating both of these implicit bias and disparate impact by diversifying our interview panels, getting those different perspectives. And within talent acquisition, one thing that we have been doing is partnering with different community organizations to post our jobs to their networks and really widen our access to our jobs and who's able to apply for them. Interview documentation. So this is the pillar of our ability to make the process more flexible because we're documenting what that process was and how that top person was chosen. So essentially, you do want to be just documenting what was said in the interviews. If there was an inappropriate comment made by the individual, certainly document that down as to, a reason not to hire that person. But we really want to make sure that each step in the process is documented. So whether that be your phone screenings or a copy of an email of someone that's withdrawing from consideration, or the fact that someone was a no-call, no-show for an interview, document that and provide that to HR. We are legally required to keep that on file for 5 years. So do want to make sure that we have that for you to defend your hiring decision. Rule of thumb, if everything opens up 18 months after the hiring decision is made, someone does technically have 2 years to grieve the hiring decision. We want to be able to go back and defend and worst case scenario in court why you had made the hiring decision you had. So law enforcement is an exception to this. So they do keep their own interview documentation, but every other department, we do ask that you in our office mail the documentation, email, fax, scan, whatever you would like to do. We can get that organized for you and keep it on file. All right, brings me to numerical scoring. So LTU is an exception. LTU does a different method of scoring, but for everyone else, we do want to recommend numerical scoring. This is a very easy way to rate how each question was answered by each candidate, and in the end, come up with a clear front runner that should be an easy decision that this is the person that we want to hire. So looking at all the scores of all the interview panelists. Not to say that you have to hire the person with the top score. There are various reasons why maybe that person came back with a bad reference or an unsatisfactory background check. Don't always have to hire the person with the top score, but just, again, document why you chose not to move forward with that person and instead hired the second highest scoring applicant. So yeah, great way to really defend your hiring decision and ensure that we are in HR able to defend that for you as well. So go ahead and stop sharing here. So I do want to say with interview documentation, do make sure that, again, you're really just making a summary of what that person has said in the interview. We want to stay away from anything that could come across as discrimination regarding their physical appearance or really anything outside of what was said during the conversation with those questions. So please let us know if you have any questions on any stage in the interview process. Talent acquisition is more than happy to be involved with the process. We can sit in on interviews. There are some departments that are having us do that presently. We're happy to help out with that. So let us know any questions you have. And if you have any other topics that you'd like HR to cover for an HR headline, please let us know. We're happy to work on that. Otherwise, thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.